month, we are going to go to Loch Ness. So this is a bit of a trek and a half to get up to this place, I tell you. It's just a very, very long way. It's going to take me probably at least a 6-hour drive to get there, but I'm going to stay at Fort August, I think. Fort August. And the other gentleman that I was speaking to about in North Wales, he's going to go to the other end here. And we're going to do some observations across here. So down here with the P1000, I've got a 21-mile stretch of loch. It's uninterrupted line of sight. And the idea is going to be that the gentleman with his drones is going to attach some light sources to them that should be bright enough to see from 21 miles away. I don't think the P1000 should have an issue in capturing that. But the good thing about it is that this drone, or these series of drones that he actually has, because it's not just one, he has a plane, he has helicopters, he has all kinds of gadgets. So he'll have altimeters on them. So when I'm in contact with him, again, I'll do this as a live stream as well. It should be that I can say to him, okay, I can now see the drone at, at 21 miles away, and he'll be able to tell me the height of that drone at that particular time. Now, again, if you live on a sphere, this loch, this water here, should conform to the globe. So you should get the same 8 inch per mile squared curvature happening to the water. And that would essentially give a blockage of around about, 200 feet or so, something like that. And yeah, if he turns around and says, oh, the drone is at 80 feet, and I'm seeing it from an elevation of, say, 3 or 4 feet, then again, the globe has a massive issue, because this water here should conform just like a globe. So it should be attracted to the center of the Earth via gravity, and gravity should make it curve. Again, we don't tend to see that. We always see a lot further than the globe model predicts. And I think NASA are just struggling to try and keep up with the bullshit that these people have put out for the past 100 or 200 years. They're trying to prove some. It's very difficult to try and make the observations match anymore. It really is. Back in 100 years ago, when they didn't have these kind of optics, it was easy enough to convince people of the shape of the Earth and of the size that it was, in their opinion. But now it's much more difficult. Now that all these optics are coming out, people are understanding the world better, the internet. We're all working towards this and breaking it. Hello, we've been joined by, who have we been joined by?
Me. Sorry, I completely forgot. It was only half an hour gap between when you told me you were going to do it and now, and I've completely forgotten about
it. Don't worry about it. You didn't miss much, apart from me sharing my screen earlier on, by the way. Oh, yeah, it was very frustrating. I started the first live stream up and realized that, yeah, I'd shared my screen like an idiot, and you know what happens when that happens.
Did somebody join, or did you end it realizing you'd done it?
I knew I'd do it. As soon as I did it, when you forget things, you just forget. I just forgot.
As long as you just ended it and started a new one, it's like, who cares? This is another live stream. You delete the old one because it's probably, incomplete. You've got a few little bits in it that might be useful, but why have that cluttering your channel's playlist of videos that are good? So yeah, you just delete it and just think, won't share the link again, because not at risk of the channel being taken down by some troll, right?
Well, that's it. I asked the chat and they all agreed that I'd shared the screen. I already knew that, so I just, I'll end it and I'll start a new one. But yeah, that's how it happens. That's what goes on. Shout out to Colin Turner. Thank you for the super chat, and Dan W as well. Thank you very much. Do appreciate it. It'll go towards the funds to get me up to Scotland and do that observation from up there. Oh, we've also been joined by John. Nice to see you in, John.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Doing just fine, sir.
Glad that you could make it.
Thank you.
So, what else has been going on recently? Because I've been a little out of the loop. I haven't been on much recently. I mean, I showed on the show today, but I've kind of been missing a lot of stuff. Nathan,
I don't know. I don't know. Am I allowed to speak?
Yeah, of course you.
Go ahead, Nathan.
You were just waiting to do that, weren't you?
Yes, sir.
Oh, right. Go on. You may speak.
You may speak. Go ahead, Nathan.
Hey, I thought there might be more to the gag, but there wasn't, so it's okay. And I was just going to say there was something. It's probably something to put to Anthony, because someone was quizzing me today about why I wanted to be a YouTuber, and I was like, "Yeah, man, I want to talk about this." And Anthony was like ribbing the guy, going, "It's none of your business. Why are you asking these questions?" And I was like, I want to answer them. You know what I mean? So it's something that after the fact I thought about it and I was like, well, why was Anthony so fussed about it? But there you go. It's not a question for you, Ranty. It's just something I've pondered on since today's show.
Well, we're just waiting on Anthony. I've sent him the link, but he's round at Dolly Daydreams and he's sorting the PC out apparently. So as soon as that's up and running, I think he's putting some new hardware on it or something, new software. So yeah, he should be in any minute. I think Adam's going to join us as well.
When was that? When did he say he was doing Dolly Daydreams PC? Because those sorts of things can take an eternity.
Well, it was 88% completed. He sent me an image. So at 2048, it was 88% completed. So it shouldn't be too long now.
Yeah, he's still got to get home though, hasn't he? Or is he going to do it from there?
I think he's going to do it from there.
Oh, that'd be cool, because that mean Dolly Daydream will join us too, right?
It would be cool, yeah. I mean, I've not actually spoken to Dolly Daydream before, but it'd be nice too.
Me neither. Yeah, I've watched a few of her live streams though. Have you watched her?
No, I haven't. To be honest, I've not seen an awful lot of stuff recently. Like I was saying, I mean, I've seen the major things that have gone on, and I'll be honest, I've seen the major stuff that's gone on. I've seen the issue with yourself and Bob, and YouTube butting heads, and
she's cool. She's like a kid. She's like an inquisitive kid.
Okay.
She's got a lot of questions and she's sniffing around stuff, asking. I like that. Inquisitive.
Right. Okay. I'll probably watch a few videos later. Do you know how she came on the scene?
Anthony just introduced me to her. I think it was through Roxanne. But I mean, what I like about her is she engages the audience about like her thought processes as she's looking at stuff. So she's very into. She says hello to everyone as they come in the chat, for example. And then she'll read out the comment and kind of lead on for it, and you can tell that she's got good viewer engagement, which I like. So if you go to a Dolly Daydream stream, she tends to involve her audience quite a lot, which I just think is good from a viewer perspective. I don't know, it's always warm and fuzzy when the person on screen's talking to you, right?
Yeah, it's a bit difficult for you to do that because you've got a debate, so you're talking to them. But like for myself, I can see people talking in the side now, and sometimes people will ask a question, and I'm quite happy to stop and talk to them about that. Hi, Adam. Nice to see you in.
Evening, gentlemen. How are we?
Oh, we're going good. We're going good. I was just telling people in the audience and people here that the observations that I've got planned. Have you had a chance to see them? Do you think they'll be any good?
I was just listening as I was setting up there, but before I go on to that, I was just going to say Dolly Daydream. We've having a chat with her tonight after Roxanne's premiere because she's going to come on Iron Realm with Roxanne on Friday, I think. Because like you said, guys, she's hit the scene. Riley's kitting her out, and just thought it'd be nice to introduce you to the guys and say hello, and for me to chance to say hello to her tonight and that. But I think she's like you say, Nathan, she's quite watchable, and I think, as you define it, engages with the chat really well. It's quite a interesting stuff. I was listening, I don't know if it was today or yesterday, listening to a chat about water molecules and ice and stuff. So it was
Can you guys hold the fort?
Widespread.
Can you guys hold the fort for 1 minute?
Yeah, no worries, Ranty. We can jibber jabber. Whenever that happens on my show, it's normally me expecting people to just assume that they need to fill the dead air that's going to be left by me not being in front of the mic, and I assume they know that by normally, for me, about 105 decibels of screaming child. So you hear that through the live stream or the hangout if you're a guest, and you know, if it were me, I'd think, all right, when it cuts off, obviously I've muted my mic to sort out whatever the problem is. And you just hope, you live in hope that people will fill the dead air. And while he's sorting out the problem, obviously I can still hear the monitor. And no one's saying a damn thing.
Yeah, except when Anthony's there, then you're good to go.
If Anthony's there, then you're always good to go. I can often make a cup of tea or make my kid's diaper. English people, but yeah, I can do all sorts of stuff if Anthony's there. He's sorely missed. He's been there less and less recently, and I think it was John Watson. He had a little pop. He was like, Anthony said in a Discord server that he wasn't interested in doing the show anymore. I was like, what? No way. Got all fussy about it. He's like, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just pulling your leg. I was like, oh, don't joke about such things.
Yeah, Anthony was fixing a computer for about a week and a half, so he was real busy doing that.
He's on a female emancipation quest, isn't he? And
yeah,
I think until there's equal rights for women in the flat Earth, he won't stop.
Yep. He's on a quest, boy.
Well, it's also combining his love of computers because he loves fiddling with computers. So about a couple of weeks ago, I introduced him to a channel called Random Gaming in HD, and it's basically this dude that just likes going out and buying really high-end tech from about 10 years ago for about 50p on eBay, you know what I mean? And building like a mega computer from 10 years ago for maybe 100 quid. So I've introduced Anthony to this dude and he's like, yeah, I like it. So I don't know, he's ended up building PCs just for fun. I don't know if he's what he's doing with them, presumably just sticking them on eBay at the end of them because he's got a decent computer to begin with. But you know, it's just a bit of fun, isn't it, when you've got something like that to keep you amused as essentially a hobby. You know, it's just a hobby with old tech. But I think it's cool. It's something I've said to Anthony a few times. You know, if I wasn't doing Flat Earth, when I was scouting around for subjects to cover because I like doing YouTube, I looked at that particular subject. I mean, it's absolutely saturated. But that would have been something that quite appealed to me, along with a whole load of other subjects. But you know, Flat Earth is miles better. It's the gift that never stops giving. You know, you never run out of things to talk about. Fantastic subject.
Yes. I keep getting when he's doing these projects, he keeps sending these texts, Nathan, of I've got a 1.2 4.8 gigaflops and 16. I don't understand it, but he's clearly getting excited.
Yeah, he tells me, he's like, oh yeah, I've got an 11, whatever it is, I've forgotten the number now, wherever the most recent one he was fiddling with, it's like an 1160 board. As soon as he said the number, I was like, oh, that's a really common board. You can get all the way up to and beyond Ivy Bridge or whatever the hell the processor was he was talking about at the time. And he's like, yeah, I've got one with 4 cores. I'm like, 4 physical cores? You know, you snap back into the jargon, you know what I mean? Talking this total bullshit. It's great.
It's like listening to bloody John and Josh. I get lost.
Oh, it's utter bullshit as well. It's not like when John and Josh talk because they're probably talking about something that's actually, you know, useful to society. Whereas when you're just talking about tech and computers,
no, that's what I mean. When they're talking tech and computers, it just goes over my head, mate. Does it work? Is it slow or is it fast? Is about my level of actual understanding. It's like cars, mate. I don't understand what's under the bonnet, really.
Oh, really? Oh, God, that's disappointing.
I know.
Well, I don't know. Those are the subjects that, like you say, if I could do like a channel and there was a brand new YouTube, nobody was covering cars, hi-fi, or computers, it'd be like, wow, that'd be a good channel to run on the side, just about whatever junky cars. But obviously, there's a bazillion channels about that as well.
Yeah, but Adam could go on and on about cis and trans isomers in the human eye.
No, that's an old one, isn't it?
Yeah, we all have our specialties, right? Some guys are mechanics. Some guys are really good with that stuff, right? Other people are good with different things, man. It takes the community, right? We can't all be experts in everything.
No,
It amazed me that, John. I don't know why I was looking into that on Iron Realm, but it's one of those things you look into further and you suddenly realise we don't know anything. We don't even really know how the eye works, why it works, why it takes 2 photons, not one.
Speaking of not knowing anything, what was your take on Bob from Globebusters' rebuttal to Nathan? I'll just put you on the spot.
Yeah, you're a bad man. You're a bad man, Stim.
Yeah. I asked that same question to you not too long ago, didn't I?
I'll tell you where I'm at with it. I think as I came on the first show, it was to say, look, I think what's come out of this is there is a huge debate to be had. I think, as I demonstrated, I find humility is a good thing on a learning process, and there's nothing wrong with being wrong. And I think the personal attacks that are going off, and I think Nathan's holding himself very well in terms of not engaging that. When I listened, was it last night? I hope that all stops, to be honest, and we can get back to why we're all here.
No, our rebuttal was last night. His was the night before that.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I think if we stick to the facts, that's the best thing and the most sensible thing, and they're worth addressing the points. And I think what's good that's come out of it is the ether discussion, and I hope that continues as well, because falling back onto one just so story is just as dangerous as another, and that'll pull me back to the point is there's nothing wrong with starting again, because I want to be right in 5 years' time, not today.
Wow, that was a pretty good political answer right there.
Yeah, you're getting no more from me, pal.
Yeah. I liked how you danced over top those grenades. Good job, sir.
That's a pleasure.
He's been practicing.
I have to talk to GPs.
I think there's probably some middle ground that can be found, though. I think obviously the way that the tests could be handled, with the equipment that's at hand, with a few modifications, etc. They're very valuable. They do give you an indication of stuff. I think there can be middle ground. I think saying definitively, for instance, that the globers, when they say definitively, they have absolute cast iron proof of the shape of the Earth, scientifically backed up by every kind of scientist in the world, and we know that's bullshit, right? So we Nathan's quite right, and yourself, John, in pulling that apart, because they don't have any scientific proof of it. That's demonstrable. We know that. But I do think there's some kind of validity in some of the tests that can be done, if we can work together to iron out the kinks, and make it a scientific, proper experiment.
Well, what do you think about that, Nathan? You think there's some middle ground there?
No.
Okay, go on, Nath. Why not?
Let's start at the beginning of what you said. Let's start with the first thing, which was, you said tests. Well, earlier on the debate, I basically was very forthright with John about not needing to specify that we're doing natural science, because we're talking about the shape of the Earth, right? Obviously, this is natural science that we're talking about. We're not talking about computers. This is the world. So I don't think that needs clarifying. Now, based on that, if you're doing an inquiry, and the guise of that inquiry has scientific terminology attached. And in this instance, from you, it does. And it only came right at the end when you said the word experiment, because before that, you almost skirted it. You know, you used the word test, and I was going to get clarity. Now I don't need to. The test you're referring to is, as you rightly pointed out at the end, going to be called an experiment. And some way or somehow you're going to try and formulate what you do into being an experiment. Well, the first step is observing something actually occurring. So once you've got a phenomenon, you can then move forward to figure out the cause of that effect. But if you're just simply observing something, so for example, would you classify what you do with your camera in any stage at any point? Would it be capable of being classified as science, do you think, Ranty?
No, I mean, it's not science at all. It's useful information that helps to debunk the globe model, but it isn't science. It's observable. That's it.
Okay. Okay, agreed. But the way to figure out in your own mind whether or not something that you're going to do going forward requires science, it's to ask yourself if you are studying an effect. So if you have phenomena, then you can go forward to figure out the cause of that effect, that phenomena, with science. That's a method of figuring that out. Now, this is where Bob comes into all of this, because moving forward is understanding the how of the globe deception. And I feel this is extremely important. How have we as reasonable human beings, individuals, people, been deceived by other normal people into believing that we're on a spinning rock flying through space in a vacuum? How has that happened? Well, how is by teaching us that there's a method that's empirical, proof of something by virtue of this method, science. So once you understand that you have a method that's empirical and proves things, all you need to do going forward is convince people that, as you've just described, Ranty, that when going forward and making maybe an observation of something, you can label it an experiment. That will mean that your conclusion after making the observation has more credence. It has more weight. Because if you say, for example, I can see Barrow-in-Furness at 18 miles, that's got a lot of weight. But if you say, I can see Barrow-in-Furness at 18 miles, and because I've leveled my tripod with a very accurate ruler, this is scientific proof that the Earth is flat, then your assertion has much more weight. And you can take it further and say, I've taken the same P900 that scientifically validated the flat Earth with my observation, scientifically done, and I've looked at lights in the sky, and I can declare that scientifically valid because I've leveled my camera to this particular angle into the sky based on the understanding of the motions of those lights. And therefore, scientifically, those lights are actually gases defying the second law of thermodynamics in a vacuum. And I've proven it because science. And the nonsense continues. And every time I say the word science or experiment or hypothesis or any of these magic keywords, the person hearing it knows at a fundamental level, incorrectly, they know that something's been proven. And it may not be proven that the light in the sky is a gas in a vacuum. It's just a light in the sky, right, Ranty?
True. But can you think of can you think of something that will be worthy of an experiment? Because like you say, lights in the sky, they could be anything.
But they're a phenomena.
Could I address that, Ranty?
Sure.
And I think this is part of the problem. You you're ranking scientific experiment above anything else in terms of the validity it offers.
No, not really. I was actually considering saying to Nathan before when he said when he was talking about the scientific method, that has that scientific method been borne out to prop up the globe as opposed to break down the globe?
I would say the term has been hijacked from its initial description, which was very narrow and offers a very narrow cause and effect form of proof, very specific for very specific purposes. And because of the absolute definity that method gives and the assurance it gives, again, the word gets hijacked in the English language, and it's that's being used to give credence to other things to its own dilution and detriment, to the point now where actually the true meaning is lost and misunderstood, as well as misrepresented.
So you think this is like an overview? You know, what QE has done is basically bring things back to their original state, and basically saying, hey, this is how it should be done, and this is how the globe fails.
I think it's outside of the globe and flat Earth, this discussion, because it applies on many, many, many levels of society and how we're duped. It's about and it's not just about the term science. It goes back to other methods of inquiry and their relevance and validity in whatever field, and also not just downgrading science as what it appears to be like now, but actually revalidating other methods of inquiry. That seems to me, once we're over this debacle of actually getting a recognition of what science does mean, that we can then move forward and validate other methods of inquiry, and therefore start to look at things with a more honest, logical approach, because we are defining the nature of the evidence we're analyzing, and that's relevant and logic and reason and being a human being, because science is lovely, but nobody is science. We're all human beings.
Yeah, I think I'm one of the flat earthers that's going to take a lot of persuasion on this particular subject. I can see exactly where you're going with it. I can see but I can also see that there is there's equipment that can be useful, so the gyroscopes can be useful, although I haven't studied gyroscopes, I do believe that they could be useful for something, so
they have a very practical application in aviation, Ranty. Are gyroscopes useful? Shit, yeah, definitely useful, but they're not scientific. So the assertion that where the problem lies is this principle where I gave the example of pointing a camera into the sky and declaring that there's a light that's a gas in a vacuum because science, right? Well, the same principle applies with the gyroscope. So, yeah, if you were to take the same logical argument against my example with the camera, you'd say, are you denying that cameras can take pictures? And I'd go, well, no. What I'm saying is you leveling the camera really accurately doesn't make it the establishment of a cause and effect relationship based on a naturally observed phenomena. That's really, really narrow, and excludes your camera and its measuring device that's leveled it. And the only thing that might be able to fit into the science would be the phenomena that you could attribute to the stars. You could argue that there's a phenomena that needs exploration. Well, perfectly valid to try and formulate the cause of that effect. But when it comes to for you personally, Ranty, you've heard us ask people over and over again for the independent variable, right?
Yep.
Well, the independent variable is the bit that you will literally physically, you personally, or somebody, or some machine that you have control over, will physically vary and manipulate that which you assume causes the effect. So if you use Earth curve, globe head example, so you've got, let's just forget that this isn't a natural phenomenon, but just because it's familiar, boat going into the horizon, Ranty. So we go, okay, phenomena, right? So let's study this, the phenomenon of boats going into the horizon. Yeah, perspective for anybody wondering, just before we go into the example. But right, so if you are to assert that the cause independent variable is Earth curve, do you think that you personally, Ranty, as a researcher, can vary that cause?
Well, no, it's definitive. If it's Earth curve, it should be the same.
But the question is, can you vary it? So you as a researcher, in order to perform science, need to vary and manipulate the cause of the effect.
So so over the 10 miles, can I change the water? No.
Can you vary the curve if that's...
No, I can't. I can't adjust the water in between my line of sight.
So for this to be science, so you're trying to make an observation with your camera. Now let's put it back into, bring it back to your first question. So if you're now doing this experiment, Ranty, the end bit of the method, but let's forget that. So you want to do some science, right? First of all, you need to figure out what your phenomenon is, the actual thing, the specific one thing that you're going to study. So what would that be?
Oh, I've got another idea.
Whirlpools. If this is whirlpools, I'm telling you now.
It's not whirlpool-y.
Go on.
How about aperture size?
How is that natural?
Hold on, I just need to get
We're
to the
working with cameras.
Hold on, Adam. So I'll just give you something, Ranty, right? So lighthouse appearing and disappearing on the horizon, right? And
Hang on, you just asked me a question. The first one was,
what's the phenomenon?
What's the phenomenon?
Yeah.
Boat disappears over water.
Okay, yeah, cool. Okay, it's not a natural phenomenon, but it's fine, it'll do. So what are you, as a flat earther, going to vary and manipulate to cause that effect?
Height.
So does height cause a boat to do anything ever?
No.
I've got one. My mate can see further than me. We're both the same height, and I think it's because he's got bigger eyes than me.
That's lovely. That's a really nice story.
Damn! Come on, you've got to. Come on then, Nathan. Is there, throw something for Ranty? I'm.
Well, I don't know. It's just.
It's not that. It's just that I'm just saying. Right. This is all where it comes into. But we're talking about gyroscopes here and stuff. I mean, how is a boat going over the curve in any way, shape, or form? Can that be? Because you've got Bob on the one side that's saying gyroscopes can prove this, and then you've got no, it can't. It's like, where's the middle ground? There must be some middle ground somewhere.
You take us back through it, Ranty. So I've just gone through it with you, right? So we're talking about cause and effect, independent and dependent variable.
Yeah, I know it's a very, very, very narrow, specific. Sure. But it's designed. It's literally. It's like it's designed to trip you up at every step.
It's not tripping you up. It's just a method. It's
I know. But is it? So it's the method
that's going to catch people out. It's just a method of inquiry. But just bear with me, Ranty. So we've got a gyroscope. So now you attempt to formulate it into science. So first of all, what are we looking at? What is the natural phenomenon that's being studied?
Stars moving.
Okay, so we are trying to establish the cause of stars rotating, correct?
Moving, not rotating.
So, okay, yeah, I mean, the stars rotating, you can call this a phenomenon. So what's the other part that we need? So that's our dependent variable, our effect, our observed phenomena, stars rotating. Now, the other side of it is the, like we went through with your camera and whatnot, the independent variable, the bit you, the researcher, are now going to vary and manipulate to cause the effect described earlier as star rotation. So what's that bit going to be?
Well, we can't cause the effect. The effect just happens.
What's that you say? We can't establish the cause of the effect you've just described?
Yes, that's what I've just said.
So what's this middle ground you talk of, Ranty?
That there must be some middle ground somewhere that equipment, measuring devices can be used, maybe not in the very narrow, specific scientific method.
Stop. Bob says it is science, I'm afraid. Maybe you can find this middle ground. You've just said that Bob's wrong, Ranty. Help me. Help me find the middle ground. You've just said he's wrong.
No,
maybe
I'm
not science, because he's saying it is.
Well, I suppose it, I mean, there's a difference between science and the scientific, applying it into the scientific method. You can use science. You don't have to always apply it in the scientific method.
But that is science.
Only if you're trying to establish something.
What, the cause of an effect?
No, but you can still perform science without having an end goal. You can literally do something scientific without having to try and formulate a result out of it.
Give me an example.
Well, you just get your telescope out and you look at the stars, right? You're just looking at it. Theoretically, you are performing science because you are using stuff to look at other stuff and whatever. But
could that be given a different description though?
Go on then. What could it be?
Well, looking at something.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, you can still do science without having to do it in the scientific method. That's what I'm saying.
Whoa. Science distinguishes itself from other forms of explanation because of its requirement for systematic experimentation. So that's the definition.
Okay. But maybe it's the term. Maybe it's the term science then, the actual name of it, that's the trigger point.
Yeah, words have meanings, and this one has a specific meaning. Go ahead, Nathan. Sorry to.
No. Yes, you've hit the nail on the head. So if there is an empirical method that, when adhered to, proves the cause of an effect, or to look at it another way, because not every experiment is validated. So it either proves the alternative or proves the null. So every hypothesis has two sides to its prediction. One is to say that you've essentially got it wrong and nothing happens, a null result. The other is that you validate the cause of the effect. So you have two sides to your methodology, and it gives you an empirical result. So it proves or disproves your hypothesis. So that in and of itself is immensely powerful. If you, Ranty, then go forth and say, it's just a terminology thing. I've looked through my telescope and science says that light is a gas in a vacuum.
So going forward, is this like a war against the term science and everything that science,
No.
Or the science
hasn't changed. Science is still an empirical method of establishing the cause of an effect. It's exclusively interested in the physical and natural world, and that has not changed. What's happened is men who appreciate the power of that word, meaning an empirical result, proven cause, those are powerful words. If you can attribute those words to a gyroscope, you can make all kinds of declarations which haven't been validated by an empirical method. For example, but not limited to, Earth rotates because I've performed an experiment with a gyroscope. Ding, 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 everyone in the audience, experiment. That means something's getting proven. Right, Ranty? Empirical method? Experiment? No. In this case, pseudoscience, a non-adherence to the method, declaration based on technology. And that's what we need to avoid if we are to understand the how of the globe lie. How did they trick us? They told us about an empirical method, then they looked at lights in the sky and told us what's what under the banner of science. They told us what the molten iron core was under the banner of science. Pseudoscientists, i.e. in this instance, astrophysicists, have declared, as Neil deGrasse Tyson boldly does, that science proves things whether you like it or not. And he's right. But he then goes on to tell you what a light in the sky is. Pseudoscience pretender clowns hijacking an empirical method.
Well said. The war is against pseudoscience masquerading themselves as science.
Right. John, are you there? I've got one more go. One more go. But I need you to be gentle with me, Mr. Stunger, please. So,
Mr. Quantum Eraser.
Okay. QE, sir. Right.
Let's not settle on formality here. QE will do just fine.
Right. So, Ranty's thing with the camera, where he's trying to do something with a camera. So I'm trying to get it in my head what we could do that is scientific. So I gave that little splurb with I've got a method inquiry and I'm looking into it. And like I said, my mate can see further than I can. And the only noticeable difference, height is the same. And we look at our eyes and we look at all sorts of things. And I noticed that his aperture is slightly larger than mine. So I head off and I do all sorts of other things. And I then decide, right, I really do think the size of that hole is the reason. So I'm going to try and do something that really proves it. So I'm going to try and use the scientific method. So I then set up an experiment with technology that empirically tries to measure the size of the aperture. Let's have no fault with the equipment. Let's not be picky there. And what I show within that is I vary the size of the aperture, and it demonstrates that the larger the hole, the further I see. And I then boldly make the statement that I've said the aperture size, an increase in it will allow you to see further. And I make that statement scientifically. That very narrow defined statement, the aperture size of the lens, in this case, my friend's eye and my eye, the size of it will play a function with regards to the ability of clarity of distance.
All right, you done?
Yeah, go on, tear me a new one.
No, I'm not going to tear you up. Let's just go through I do everything systematically. You know what
Excellent.
My first question is going to be, right?
Yes, but that's what I didn't want to do. I just wanted you to just appraise it just in, as opposed to take me through it just this time. So just actually appraise it.
Okay, natural phenomena observed.
Oh, no, you missed a step.
No, it's a cause and effect relationship.
Can you still just point that out for the audience's benefit?
Yeah,
though?
yeah, I surely can. The first question you should ask yourself, anyone's claims or whether you're considering whether this is a scientific inquiry is just a simple algorithm. Hold on one second. It's a simple algorithm. It says, A, is this a cause and effect question or is it a what is question?
Well, in this case, I'm suggesting cause and effect. I'm saying the cause is the larger aperture size.
Okay.
Yeah. The effect is greater viewing distance.
Greater viewing. So what's the natural phenomena observed? Greater viewing distance?
Yeah. Greater clarity.
And so that's the dependent variable, or greater clarity. That's the dependent variable. What's the cause of that, or the alleged cause?
Say that again, John.
What's the alleged cause or the supposed cause of seeing more clarity?
The greater aperture size.
So you're talking about the eyeball, like the human eye?
Yeah. So the bigger the eye, the further you see.
That's pretty good, because you can do that, right? Because that's not a man-made thing. The humans didn't make that. Man didn't make the eye, so yes, that could be tested.
Yeah. And the phenomena, more specifically, that I'm observing is my friend who's the same height as me.
Sure.
Can see further.
Sure. Yeah, that's good to go. You could formulate that in the hypothesis. Yeah, that's good to go.
Okay. So in no way am I trying to claim any more specific science with that, other than then taking technology of different aperture sizes, everything else being equal, and in an empirical setup, experiments, then
you could extrapolate that, but be careful, because then you're going to start getting into man-made lenses. But it's a reasonable extrapolation.
Yeah, as I said, no criticism of the experimental setup. Let's assume it's perfect and brilliant. We're just sticking with the theology of. So we've done that bit then, and then we get a set of results that allows us to draw a conclusion.
Oh, you missed another step.
Okay.
Well, you didn't. You just brushed past it by saying that you'd have to have an empirical setup. So that's kind of taken care of in the hypothesis with the null.
Yeah. So aperture size will have no effect on distance.
I'll expand on it for you. That's perfect. You're too succinct. So your alternative hypothesis would be, if you have a larger aperture, then you will see a greater distance. Whereas the null hypothesis would be, if you have a larger aperture, there'll be no difference in terms of the distance, right? Or no effect. So it'd be no. Let me get it correct. The alternative would be, if you have a bigger aperture, you will see an increase in distance viewed.
The bigger the hole, the further you see.
And but then the bigger the hole, no difference. Yeah, no result. In other words, you've increased your aperture, nothing's happened.
Yeah.
So but that's the bit that makes it empirical, because at the end of your test, so let's just say you actually perform that test and you increase the size of the aperture, and let's just say nothing happens, you don't get to any greater clarity, you don't see any further distance, then you've essentially validated the null. If larger aperture, no difference. So one or other will be validated at the end of the experimental process. More often than not, probably the null, right? But zero difference result. In other words, you think you've got the presumed cause correct. Oh yeah, this will definitely cause that effect, and you vary it, and sod all happens. But you still validate the null.
Yeah. So, are we up to speed so far, John?
Yes.
Right, so I can now then, in a very limited way, make the scientific statement that aperture size has an increase in aperture size has a positive effect in terms of viewing distance. And I can make that scientific statement to validate other methods of inquiry, such as logic and reason, and apply it without having to be scientific. And the conclusions I draw with regards to the new things I analyze with that scientific knowledge aren't scientific, but they are validated by that scientific knowledge.
Yes, that's it's very reasonable and rational that you could, because the lens in the eye is similar. You can make a reasonable analogy to microscopes, telescopes, cameras, right? They all have lenses with apertures. So that's a reasonable, anyone would consider that reasonable. Yes.
Well, can I take it one step further, just because I want to incorporate the end bit as well? So
Sure.
Don't you blow it for me, Nathan.
Well, I was just going to say that if you had further to that, and I won't go through the full formulation of a hypothesis, but let's say an observed phenomena of a, I don't know, bloody raindrop magnifying something, right? And you put that through the same hypothesis-driven experimentation and come up with a result that gives you some sort of scientific validity to magnification, right? So you've got aperture being validated by scientific methodology for Adam, and I come up with some scientific validity to magnification through whatever lenses, right? Well, those two things that have both gone through that process can be used to formulate something called a scientific theory. So when people say theory, forget the colloquial meaning, i.e. Mystic Meg divining something in a crystal ball based on what you think. Well, a scientific theory is the end result of possibly more than one, most likely more than one processes. Is that right? Plural? Of processes of the scientific method, or that adhered to the scientific method. So that's the end result. So theories come last. Scientific theories.
Okay, can I ask you a question? I'm going to be doing this observation to determine whether or not the once and for all, we've already proved it anyway, but the inferior mirage happens in the atmosphere just above, or the just above the water, rather than being a reflection off the water, right? So how would I formulate a scientific method for doing that?
You can do this, Ranty. You've got a valid phenomena, right? Would you agree,
So,
John?
I'm thinking the boat starts to have an inferior mirage. So that's the start point, yeah? I see the boat starting to have an inferior mirage. How do I determine whether it's an inferior mirage or earth curve? Somebody lowers a light to the bottom of the boat that shines through the inferior mirage.
All right, now you're getting ahead of yourself. So you've got half of it already. So you've got what you classify as a phenomena, right? So you've got something disappearing periodically through the day. Yeah. So that's your phenomena. Well, that's your dependent variable in the hypothesis. So you're already halfway there to having a hypothesis. If you've got the effect, dependent variable phenomena observed, then what's the other bit? The bit we ask for hundreds of times, Ranty.
How do I manipulate it?
Well, what's the thing you're going to be manipulating?
Dependent variable.
Independent variable. Yeah. So the independent variable is your presumed cause. So you already said this once already. You've already got a presumed cause, right? What do you think causes the mirage?
I think it's in the atmosphere. You're going to say limited viewing angle.
No. I'm asking you. So,
I'm going to say it's in the. I'm not going to say what causes it. I'm going to say it's in the atmosphere. It's not on the water.
But that's a cause. You're saying so what your hypothesis would be is if atmosphere, then mirage. That's oversimplifying how it could be, honed. I don't know if that's the right word. It's late in the day. But yeah, I mean, potentially, you know, to send it into farce, I'd say, well, can you vary and manipulate the atmosphere? Well, potentially, yeah, under controlled circumstances.
But can you negate the effect? Can you disprove it being Earth curve by lowering the light to the bottom of the boat that pierces through the inferior mirage?
No, because you're not trying to disprove what isn't causing something. What you're trying to do is validate the cause of the effect. So to go forward with your inquiry, you've got a phenomena and you've got a presumed cause. Now, under controlled circumstances, you need to vary and manipulate your presumed cause of the effect and cause the effect. So that's what you need to do science. And you've already, you've got a rudimentary hypothesis already just by telling me what the effect you're observing is and what you think is causing that effect. That's it. When it's at this level, it is as simple as that, Ranty.
So anything that's not tangible, essentially, sort of things that we can't actually get close to, is the ones we have an issue with.
Well, tangible and intangible are kind of a bit loaded because.
Okay, so star rotations, we don't know what the stars are. We're never going to go there. The center of the Earth, the molten iron core, we're never going to dig down that far to find out what's there.
Okay, I see what you're getting at. You're on fire, Ranty. Excellent. Yes, your presumed cause of an effect must be real, right? And the reason it must be real is because, well, if it's not real, how are you going to vary and manipulate something like, let's see, gravity? How are you going to vary and manipulate that? Or let's have another one, ether. How are you going to vary and manipulate ether? Right. So let's just stick with presumed causes that are real and you can actually vary and manipulate. That would be good.
Well, we've tried to get Dolly Daydream on and Tony, but for some reason they're having issues with joining on the Skype. So I think we'll just round it out here and now, unless you guys have got anything else to say.
No, man. Do some science. Or take some better pictures.
Oh, thank you very much.
It's only because Anthony's not here. I had to do it on his
Well,
behalf,
actually,
mate. I don't mean it.
I'm going to set John a task, actually. Tell him how I can do a scientific method for this observation down in Wales, where I'm going to be filming the boat, and eventually it will go in the inferior mirage. And I want a scientific method that can be scientifically proven and validated.
But it is a method. I've just given it you.
Yeah, no, but I want John to do it because I don't want to argue with John. It's just if he can do that, would you be willing to?
Who, me?
Yeah, you.
What do you want me to do? What am I signing up for here?
Well, did you see the start of the show? I bet you did.
Yeah, but you left and I came back.
Okay, so there's a flat Earth fellow that's got in touch with me who's hiring a boat down in Wales, and for the day, him and the skipper are going to be jollying around on the ocean, and I'm going to be filming them from the shore. So we're going to have communication. They're going to have GPS. We're each going to have a P1000, etc. And basically, they're going to go at certain distances and where, basically to a point where I'm going to say, hey, guys, I can no longer see you now, and we're going to take all this data and stuff. But at some point, we know that the boat is going to enter an inferior mirage. It's just what happens. So if I'm viewing the inferior mirage, and it's my assertion that the inferior mirage is atmospheric rather than a reflection off the water, i.e. where the hump of the curvature of the Earth is supposed to start, if I get him to lower a light or some kind of source that can penetrate the inferior mirage at the hull, and it goes through the inferior mirage, it will kind of break through it, which will disprove the the idea that it's Earth curve. I've already essentially proved that anyway over the last year, but I just want to see that kind of thing happen. So is there a test or a scientific method that can be applied to this?
Yeah, observe natural phenomena. Observe, please.
Inferior mirage of the boat. Boy, you're supposed to be doing this. You're supposed to be doing
I'm supposed to be doing. Do I got to do it right now? I'm getting hungry.
Okay, well, you can Skype me. You can Skype me with it, because if you do it and you formulate what you think should happen and how the scientific method should be applied in this particular case,
It can't be.
I will apply it.
It can't be. So, right, if your observed phenomena, Ranty, is mirage, then that's what you're trying to cause when you vary something. And that's not what you're going to be doing if you're dangling a light into the inferior mirage.
Yep.
Now, that is an excellent demonstration of how it couldn't possibly be Earth curve, and I encourage you to do this. But what you're trying to do is the mistake that Bob's made, which is you want your assertion to have more weight. And John phrases this, greasing the skids for your assertion. So if at the end of your observation you declare that it can't possibly be Earth curve because you have lowered a light into the band, which you don't know the cause of, which we call an inferior mirage, and you can introduce and remove a light from what is alleged to be Earth curve, thus disproving that it's Earth curve. Now, that's a perfectly reasonable and logical assertion based on an observation that you can demonstrate simply by playing back the footage, right? Now, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you say, I've formulated it into the scientific method, the only reason to do that is to lend more weight to the assertion you make at the end of your observation. And it simply isn't necessary. So in the same way, go on.
Sorry. So this is essentially where, you know, I'm viewing this inferior mirage. The globers are saying this is where the hump starts for the curvature of the Earth. And I'm saying, no, it's atmospheric. If I prove it's atmospheric, then basically the full inferior mirage is basically where the rest of the bottom of the hull will be. So essentially, without the inferior mirage or the atmospheric blockage, we will see all of the boat, right? So it's a flat Earth versus ball Earth issue. What is the inferior mirage and where does it start?
Well, that's a different question.
Yeah, it's a logical consistency proof.
So what I'm trying to say is that if I prove by shining the light through the inferior mirage that, and obviously when you're viewing it from the other end, you see the light piercing through the inferior mirage and they've lowered it to the bottom of the hull. That kind of disproves the idea that it's Earth curve, yeah? So as you agree, you know, it's a very good demonstration of proving that it's not Earth curve. So when Bob does his his test or whatever, talks about his kind of stuff, and he's got that same kind of process, whereas it might not be fully scientific, as in the scientific method, but it is still valid, surely.
Yes, it's logically consistent to declare that if you are on a sphere and you apply gyroscopic motion to an aircraft, that you would see a deviation in that gyroscopic motion as you went around the sphere of the Earth. Because there is no deviation, it's a logical consistency to say that you are traveling across a flat plane. Now, that's perfectly reasonable, and I would stand by that. I've got videos up about gyroscopes. You know what I mean? I get it. It's perfectly reasonable to make that assertion. And for you, you've made a similar mistake, which is brilliant for me because I can point it out and use your logical consistency in the affirmative. So at the end, you declared that it logically means or infers that it couldn't possibly be a physical obstruction if you can dangle a light in and out of it. Now, that assertion is correct. But before you made that assertion, on 5 occasions, you said the mirage causes, or I'm going to be dangling the light into the mirage. So you're already begging the question. You're assuming that what you will declare afterwards, i.e. the cause of this is mirage, Well, that's unreasonable and not logically consistent, because you don't know what caused the effect that you observed, even though it was essentially man causing the effect in the first instance. It's irrelevant because you're not trying to observe a natural phenomena. You're trying to debunk a logically inconsistent argument that what is obscuring at the base of the boat is a physical blockage. Now, you can debunk that with a logical assertion based on an observation, and nobody would argue with you about it. But I would argue on two levels. If you were to A, assert that you've got a cause, you've now got the cause of it being mirages. Well, what do you mean, cause being mirage? Have you proven that that's the cause of this effect? Is that the effect we're even talking about? No.
Right. Exactly. You got it. You're on it.
So from that point, I'd say no, on that level, you can't claim that that's the effect that you've proven. And if you had, well, have you applied the method to that effect? Because that's not what you've detailed in your conclusion. Also, if you said it was an experiment, so if you went out on your boat, dangled your little light and said, I've done an experiment, you'd have me all over you like flies on shit, because it's not an experiment. It's not establishing the cause of the effect. So at the start of this explanation to yourself, Ranty, you'd already formulated the hypothesis, right? You'd got it. It's simple. Once you've wrapped your head around it, what's the effect? Well, mirage. What's your presumed cause? Well, the atmosphere. Well, now you need to vary and manipulate the atmosphere to cause the mirage. It is that simple. Well, can you come up with a controlled environment where you can control the atmosphere to cause a mirage, or cause something in the near distance to disappear in your controlled experiment? That's what you're trying to achieve.
The atmosphere does change above the water by the motion of the water. So
well, okay, let's flip it away from the controlled situation. When you're out on the boat, can you control the independent variable, variable singular, let's brush past that, the independent variable of the atmosphere? Can you vary and manipulate that?
Me personally, no.
So you won't be able to validate the cause of the effect.
Right.
Yeah, that's when I say it's a very
scientific. That's what I meant. You're not going to be able to vary and manipulate your presumed cause of an effect when you go out on this boat, but you can absolutely observe something that absolutely craps all over the assertion that there's a sphere blocking the way of the boat that your mate's out on. Right. You can crap all over that, Ranty. And I love everything you do, Ranty, and I'm going to say this from the heart, right? Most of the pictures I run on the debate are yours, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Right, well, there's a reason for that. I love them. They get people right in the traps. You're out there looking at the phenomenon of X, and you don't have an explanation for it, but you've got it there, and we can give a logically consistent explanation for it. What do they give us? Slightly looming non-standard refraction hyena holographic projections of buildings from behind an Earth curve that's reified from a model that assumes R? Bollocks.
Can you say that again?
Right? Yeah, he's absolutely correct. Way to deconstruct that. And just remember the 5 proofs that I have for a flat Earth, they're logical consistency proofs. None are scientific. So don't use the word.
I see where I can appreciate exactly where you're coming from.
That was something else. Sorry, it's Bob related again. It's just because it's in the near past. I'm sorry. I'm not picking on Bob. But the argument that was given against the assertion that there's a scientifically valid proof of a rotating Earth, well, the debunk for that is the Coriolis effect. Well, that's not something that's scientifically valid, right? You stand on a round, you literally stand on a roundabout holding a ball, and the ball rotates with the roundabout as you're holding it. Well, when you throw it and release it, and it carries on in a straight line, but you watch it curving. It's not. That's just an apparent deflection because you continue to rotate under the ball that's left your hand. Well, that's sod all scientific in that. But you can explain Coriolis to somebody, and it might take a couple of times, depending on who you're talking to, but eventually it's fairly simplistic and people will understand it. Well, given that understanding, you can then go forth to explain how the fixed frame of the gyro can't possibly have the Earth rotating underneath to give you the 15-degree deviation. Because if the Earth was turning underneath, then you'd have the problem of planes with Earth turning underneath them, right, Ranty?
Oh, yeah. I'm well on board with that.
Well, when did I mention science in that explanation?
Okay.
And that's what I was alluding to earlier, you know. The word science is king. And actually, as human beings, we do actually subconsciously place one hell of a lot more trust in logic and reason. And, you know, when properly validated, logic and reason is actually just as, if not more powerful than science. The science only applies to cause and effect. Logic and reason has a much broader scope. End it there.
Arwin wants you to say it slower for some reason.
Who's he talking to?
To you.
Say what? Say what slower?
He says, say it slower, like you did this afternoon.
Earth turns underneath.
I think he gets off on that. Right, guys, I'm going to round out because I did say I was only going to do a 45-minute stream, but we've been going now for, what, hour and a half nearly. So anything you guys want to say before I cut it short?
Just the Earth is obviously and observably flat.
And John, anything?
Yeah. It's a pleasure in the company of these fine gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Adam?
Yeah, the Earth's flat, science, all that sort of stuff. But actually, tomorrow night, 10:30, it's Moon Night on Iron Realm Media. Hope you can all join us there. It'll be me, John, Josh, Walt, Zach, hopefully Rob, and hope we've also got hopefully Roxanne, Dolly Daydream, if you've tried to, who's popped in and out tonight, and Robin as well, obviously with a little bit of the conference update, but hopefully it's Moon Night tomorrow night, so we're going to be looking at John's and possible moon phases. And I know we've got Mike from FE Cores modeling it for us now. John's been badgering him.
Excellent.
So we'll see whether he gets that done in time, but I know we've had some great pictures already from the States of a crescent moon at midnight. Travis got some and Zach got some. So if anybody's out tomorrow, you included, Ranty, we're going to be looking, see if we can get a gibbous moon at midday tomorrow. So 12 o'clock, pal, get your camera out and see if you can spot the moon anywhere.
So 12 o'clock tomorrow night?
Lunchtime.
Oh, at lunchtime, right? So you want it in the right? Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I'll probably be around for doing that actually.
Something?
Yeah,
One more thing?
Yeah.
Well, just because it's running right now. So Flat Earth Debate 755 uncut and after show is running on my second channel, which is Nathan Oakley. So check it out.
Right, and Roxanne has just started to spam the IRM link. So if anybody hasn't actually joined over there,
cheers,
please go over there and subscribe. Click the link, subscribe, and tomorrow night you'll be treated to another 2 or 3 hour live, a format similar to Globebusters in a way, but it gets an awful lot of very low audiences for the amount of subscribers that they have and the amount of people that say they're going to watch it, which surprises me really, because it has everybody in there. Everybody, all the channels that you would expect to see in there do actually appear in there, and it's really frustrating that you don't get more people going over and watching it, because it's a really top show. So everybody, if you get the chance, head on over, subscribe, and then you'll be treated to a show tomorrow night at this time. Right, so I'm going to round out now. Thanks everybody for coming. Nathan, you've already left. Adam,
cheers, mate.
And John, Thank you very much for showing up. And I know Dolly Daydream did try to join, but her PC was still not working